Up for another couple of questions for atheists? Because today we're going to expose yet another apologist as the dishonest, intellectually vapid con artist that he is. You know, like all the rest. Because this isn't all that hard to see, and it's everywhere. It's funny that the religious can't actually identify what these people are doing wrong. Because they don't give a damn either. So we're going to do a pretty quick one today because this really demonstrates why I think, at least, Cameron Bertuzzi over at Capturing Christianity has so many problems. And we've kind of examined this in the past, but this is a perfect example. He put out a video called 3 Sincere Questions for Atheists. And it becomes really clear, really fast, that absolutely none of this is sincere or honest, or actually questions for the vast majority of atheists whatsoever. And that's hardly a surprise, is it? In fact, I can't think of a single thing in this video that would lead me to believe that Cameron is an honest interlocutor at all. So where does he go so wrong? Let's get going and find out.
So I've got 3 questions that I want to ask atheists, and these aren't gotcha questions. I sincerely want to know the answer to these questions.
And I think it's funny that he says that these aren't gotcha questions, because by the end, we'll know that that's all that they are. This leads me to believe that Cameron doesn't actually understand what a gotcha question is, and he's certainly not alone. Lots of theists do this very thing and don't seem to understand where they're going wrong, so I'm just going to lay it out there just so hopefully Cameron can get it through his head and maybe some of these people might learn something. It isn't like there isn't plenty of discussion about this online, so if Cameron really wanted to know what he's doing wrong, he could just go look it up, but this doesn't apply just to religion. It's insanely common in things like political discussions as well. So here we go. This is helpful for everybody. A gotcha question, or more often a series of questions, as in this case, are those which aim to steer your opponent into a position where they look ridiculous or irrational or bad, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. They aren't asked because the questioner is actually interested in what their opponent has to say. It isn't asked so that the questioner can learn something about their opponent's position. It's being done so the questioner can make a theological or political or whatever point that appeals to the questioner's intended audience. And that intended audience, in this case, is not atheists. It's religious people who are just looking to be comforted in their faith. And that's exactly what we're going to see here.
First question is, do you believe that God does not exist?
No, and neither do the overwhelming majority of atheists. Most atheists lack belief in the existence of any God because there is no satisfactory evidence to support the contention that one does. Now, I figure Cameron has to know this already. He's been doing this far too long and has had too many interactions with atheists to rationally think otherwise. And that puts a question as to his honesty. He's asking it this way, and you notice that he's phrased it very specifically to appeal to his actual intended audience, which are not atheists, because that's what they want to think is true. He's putting it that way because he hopes that atheists watching will either agree to it, which I suppose a few will, or will just go along with it for the sake of argument, which I'm not going to do. But I have seen other people responding to his questions that have, because it helps him to get to his gotcha in the end. So I'm not going to do it just to show you where he goes completely wrong. But it's very easy to see where people might fall for it.
So you kind of either have that belief or you don't?
And I don't. I lack belief in gods because there is no evidence that I consider credible that points to the existence of any gods whatsoever. Again, with all of the experience that he's had, he can't not know this. He can't be that dumb. I hope he isn't anyway, but who knows. This is a setup to get to where he wants to push people, and I'm not going to be playing along. And this is why so many of these questions for atheist videos go so entirely wrong. Because either the theist doesn't have the slightest clue what the hell they're talking about, they're just trying to confirm their own preconceptions instead of allowing atheists to answer in good faith, or they are being dishonest and trying to get support from their own side, who are absolutely ignorant of reality, and as we know, they just don't care. And I think it's obvious in this case what's actually going on. If you disagree, explain it to me down in the comments, because I'd be interested in seeing what you think.
You either believe that God does not exist or you don't. If you answered yes to that, then you're ready for the next question. The next question is, do you believe in evidentialism?
See, what'd I tell you? He's steering. These are not questions for atheists. They are trying to push anyone who answers toward his gotcha in the end. Because the point of asking questions is to spark a conversation, and guess what Cameron has no interest in whatsoever? How do you know that? Because, so far as I can tell, he's never answered one person at all in his comments, period. At least not that I've ever seen. Because he doesn't actually care, and I get so sick and tired of the religious saying, but we do care. No, you don't. Not in any demonstrable way you don't, because you're the ones that just run away from conversations when they don't go your way, or when we don't take your unsupported claims seriously. And Cameron is no different than that. He never is, and he never has been, again, so far as I've seen. He is not an honest interlocutor. He is trying to score brownie points with his own religious audience. And that's not something that should impress anyone.
Evidentialism is the view that your beliefs ought to be proportioned to the evidence. You shouldn't just believe something without evidence.
And that's valid. No one should believe anything without evidence, which is why I'm an atheist. There is no evidence for any God that I have ever seen in my life. If you can't demonstrate it objectively, then you shouldn't believe it at all. Of course, the religious are absolutely not on board with that because everything that goes on in their heads, it's based on feelings, not facts. The facts don't matter when they get in the way of their fifis. Of course, the religious, they don't like that very much, especially when you point out that absolutely everything else in their lives, they are, by and large, evidentialists. Except when it comes to their own religion. Then it just goes right out the window because it's their fifis at stake. And this is a good place to have a discussion because there is no good reason, other than emotions, that such should be the case. But they don't really want to talk about that, do they? If they reject the existence of Bigfoot based on no evidence, well, why don't they reject the existence of their deities for the exact same reason? They should, after all, if they're going to be intellectually consistent, but they're not. They never are. And that's the problem that we have. You just won't get a theist to have a credible conversation on the matter because they have no good reasons whatsoever. They just have faith. They just want to believe. They don't care about the facts because the facts get in the way of their emotions. And that's just stupid.
Those are the first two questions.
One dishonest and the second irrelevant until you get to the third, which ties it all together because Cameron has an agenda. And this is a great example of Cameron's utter dishonesty, at least that's how it appears, because there's really only two choices here. A, he doesn't know what he's doing wrong, because there's no question at all that this is the wrong way to carry out any kind of rational conversation, or B, he doesn't care. And of the two options, I'm going to go with B, because that's certainly how it appears to me. Because I don't think he does care. He's just trying to get his preconceived conclusion across because that's what makes him happy, and he's got an audience paying him money to say this kind of thing. I'm sorry, but this is the very definition of a gotcha question, Cameron. And even though you've been told this on numerous occasions, because I've seen it in the comment section of your own video, I don't suspect you give a damn about that either, do you?
You answered yes to both of those. If you have the belief that God does not exist, and you also believe in evidentialism, you're ready for the third question. The third question is, what is your evidence that justifies your belief that God does not exist?
And there you go. The setup and the payoff. He's been steering the conversation the whole way so that he can get to the conclusion that he had in mind the whole time. And this is exactly why the religious are not impressive in any of this. I don't know if they think we can't see this crap coming from a mile away or what, because this is just ridiculous. Again, Cameron hasn't responded to any comments that I've seen, at least at the time that I'm making this video. If he does after I'm done making it, it takes about 2 months for these things to post, then yeah, I will retract that statement. But at the moment that I'm making this, that seems to be the case. The only people who are trying to field all of the objections are people who are just bobbing on Cameron's knob and trying to make excuses for why this isn't just a complete dishonest disaster. They want the same thing that Cameron does. It was all set up to self-select so Cameron gets the answers that he wants instead of the answers that I think we all know he realized he'd receive. Because he doesn't really care, does he? He's off doing something else now, trying to con the rubes with another video instead of just handling the consequences of the crap that he posts. Because he just doesn't care. He doesn't actually have any questions for atheists, and they certainly aren't sincere. He doesn't actually care what atheists have to say unless it gets him to the conclusion that he wants to reach. Every video he does is just ridiculous cherry picking. This is why, as is no surprise, Cameron Bertuzzi is laughably unimpressive. He's doing the same thing that pretty much every other apologist out there is doing, lying to the audience and trying to con the gullible for a paycheck. And that's not really something he should be proud of. But these are scam artists and nothing more. You'd think that with the number of people pointing out just how dishonest all of this is in video after video after video after video, he might, apologize, change his tune, clean up his act. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, is it? He won't do that because he just doesn't care. Honesty doesn't get him converts. So he lies, and this whole thing was just a lie. Make no mistakes about it. This is as clear an example of a gotcha as you can possibly get. Because, in my opinion at least, Cameron is just an ass. Maybe it's time that we started calling a spade a spade. It's not going to help because these people just won't care, but at least we'll be the honest ones. And there's something of value in that, isn't there?
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.